All right, so welcome. We're going to talk tonight about tactical fouls. We're going to focus in specifically on differentiating between stopping a promising attack and denying an obvious goal-scoring opportunity. Those are both tactical fouls, but obviously very, very different outcomes for us. And so we want to make sure that we're evaluating these situations correctly and making the best possible decisions. So we're going to start with just a review of some considerations. Now, I've condensed what used to be a very, very long list of considerations into just a handful of them that are going to help us to identify tactical fouls and when misconduct is necessary, what card we should be given, either a yellow card or a red card. So the first thing that we have to do for any tactical foul is determine if possession is present. Now, the laws of the game specifically define possession as control of the ball or ability to gain control of the ball. And we want to have clear control of the ball. So if there's any doubt as to whether or not a player has possession of the ball or can gain possession of the ball, we don't want to deem them to be in possession of the ball. Now, we start with possession as one of four condensed considerations we're going to look at because possession is the single most important consideration when it comes to tactical fouls. Tactical fouls that are tactical in nature are committed to prevent some sort of tactical advantage for the opposing team. If the team doesn't have possession of the ball, there is no tactical foul. And so we start off with possession because that's our number one criteria or consideration. If a player does not have possession of the ball or the clear ability to gain possession, then we don't want to think that a tactical foul has happened. We cannot have a stopping a promising attack or a denying goal scoring opportunity if the player does not have possession of the ball or the clear ability to gain possession of the ball. So that's our number one priority. A couple of things to be thinking about, whether or not the ball is on the ground or in the air, and how does that affect clear possession or clear ability to gain possession of the ball, right? So if the ball is rolling on the ground and somebody's running up to it, that is a very, very controlled situation. There's a lot of predictability to what the ball is going to do, and you can guarantee that the next shot or the next touch or two is either going to be a good pass or a good shot. That's when the ball is rolling on the ground. Now, think about when the ball is bouncing. If the ball is up in the air, flying through the air, or bouncing, it's significantly more difficult and unpredictable to try to gain possession of the ball and then do something meaningful with it. And so anytime we have a ball in the air, we automatically want to downgrade a little bit the likelihood that they're going to gain possession and do something meaningful with it. So a question here, is the first touch of the ball from a pass considered having possession? Certainly. And I would also say that if the ball is rolling towards someone and there's a reasonable likelihood that they're going to be able to control it, that's also the idea of possession, ability to gain control of the ball. So if it's on their foot or if it's out in front of them because they've touched it out in front of them, or if it's on the way to them and they're about to receive it, we want to consider those to be possession. Because if it's on the ground in particular, high likelihood they're going to have possession of that ball. But under the same circumstances, if the ball is flying through the air, now suddenly it's a little bit more difficult to assume that they have clear possession of the ball. Any questions about just that consideration, the idea of possession and how it relates to whether or not you can have a tactical foul? Great. I'm going to move us along to the next one then. The next consideration is the personnel involved. Now, we use the word personnel because we want to be thinking about both defenders and attackers. So this is where we talk about what numerical advantage does the team who suffers the foul have. So if an attacker gets fouled and another guy gets the ball and there are 3 attackers and there are 2 defenders, we're definitely in a situation where they have a numerical advantage. Where are those players? If one defender is really, really far away and there's 2 attackers really, really close, what does that do to the likelihood of gaining possession and going on to some sort of promising attack? So how many defenders are involved? How many attackers are involved? really gives us a sense of, is there a numerical advantage or not? And then the location of those defenders sometimes can tell the difference between something that is a promising attack or something that is an obvious goal scoring opportunity. And we'll get into some of that discussion when we start looking at clips. Next consideration is proximity. Now, how far from the attacking goal are they? We want to think about that because the farther away they are from the goal where they can score a goal, the less likely that there's some sort of promising attack available, right? So if they're in the attacking third and a foul happens and they're going on goal, great. You know, that's a promising attack. And if the foul stops that promising attack, then we have our answer. But the farther they get away from the goal where they can score a goal, the less likely SPA, stopping a promising attack or denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity, can factor into our equations. Because the farther away they are, the more likely other things can happen that would take away that goal scoring opportunity. Other defenders may catch up. More touches required. Maybe they can't get all the way there before a challenge on the ball happens. Who knows, right? So the proximity to the goal is a big factor for us. And the last one is, how much potential for attack is there? And when we're asking ourselves that, there's three sort of sub-considerations we want to think about. Does the player have space? Does the player have time? And does the player have options? If the player has a lot of space, a lot of time, and has options for things to do with the ball, either shooting or passing, those are going to factor into a higher likelihood of a good potential for attack. On the flip side, if there's no space, no time, and there's no one to pass the ball to, that's probably not a very promising attack. And so that's going to tell us maybe we don't have a promising attack or we don't have a tactical foul. So those are the four considerations. We call them the 4 Ps, and we've been doing that for a long time. So the 4 Ps are something we want you to remember when it comes to tactical fouls. Do they have possession of the clear ability to gain possession? How much personnel is involved? Do they have a numerical advantage? What is their proximity to the goal that they're attacking? And how much potential for attack is there? Specifically, do they have space, time, and options? Now, we'll get into some nitty-gritty on this when we look at clips, but does anybody have any questions about these 4 considerations? Question here, what about direction? Very, very good one. We would consider that under proximity. Proximity, part of how far away from the goal are they, is which direction are they heading. If they're heading towards that goal, then great. If they're heading away from it, then it starts to downgrade a little bit. It's a very good question, Sunny. Thank you. Any other questions on the 4 considerations that are listed in front of you? Okay, so then we're going to talk about the 2 decisions that we're going to ask ourselves tonight. Stopping a promising attack. We like to use the acronym SPA. So if you hear me say SPA tonight, what you're hearing from me is stopping a promising attack. And then the last one we have is denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity. And this is specifically what we call DOGSO. So a couple of questions that came in a moment ago. How do sidelines come into play with regard to proximity? I'm not sure that I understand the question. So Eric, if you could find a way to elaborate a little bit more, I'd appreciate it. We had another question. What types of fouls would this be? Any foul that you're going to find in Law 12. So most of the time it's going to be direct free kick fouls, but there are some circumstances where you might find an indirect free kick foul, but more than likely it's going to be one of your direct free kick fouls. And one other point of order, I apologize for not saying this earlier. When you type a question into the chat feature, please select all panelists and attendees to receive the question. You can choose in blue there. There should be a little small drop down where you can choose either all panelists or all panelists and attendees. Please choose all attendees as well so that everybody can read your question in the chat box. So we have a thing here, do sidelines serve as another defender in consideration of numbers as well as consideration for ability to gain control? I would say no to both of those. The sideline is not a defender. The only thing that we might think about is if they're pressed up against the touch line, do they have space, right? So under potential for attack, Space is one of the things that we look at. And if they're pinned up against a touch line, they probably don't have very much space. But that would be really the only factor we would consider for one of the boundary lines. Any other questions on the 4 considerations before we move on from those? Another thing we are to remember that possession varies, for example, when the field conditions is really affecting the ball players and players' abilities. Luis, I would remind you please not to share your opinions because that's actually not correct. If a player has a reasonable ability and has the ball at their feet, that's what we want to judge. So please do not share opinions. Let's only focus on questions. So now we want to differentiate between stopping a promising attack and denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity. So with the 4 considerations that we have here, we need to have all 4 of them be present for denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity. So for DOGSO situations, particularly we're going to focus tonight on situations outside the penalty area. For denying obvious goal scoring situations, we need to have all 4 considerations present. If we're missing one of the considerations, it is no longer an obvious goal scoring opportunity. It is probably stopping a promising attack. Now, we can have any combination of these 4 available for stopping a promising attack, with the caveat that just simply having possession is not enough for a promising attack. There needs to be also a personnel advantage of some kind, or proximity to the goal, or potential for attack. So if we have any 2 of these, one of which has to be possession, now we're thinking about, do we have a stopping a promising attack situation? And it's worth noting that stopping a promising attack earns a yellow card for the player who committed the foul. Denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity, specifically outside the penalty area, is denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity, and it's a red card. So we had another question here for possession. If they are close to the ball, I'm not sure what you're asking here, John, I apologize. If they're close to the ball but do not possess, yeah, sure. If they don't have the ball yet and there are other players around who might challenge them for the ball, then we can't say that they clearly have the ability to gain control. So the clear ability to gain control is when it's very obvious they're the player who's going to get the ball. If there are other people close by who might get the ball, then it's not clear anymore. I want to sort of encourage you not to try to define it by how many feet it might be. Is it 2 feet? Is it 3 feet? That's going to be impossible for you on the day when you're on the field. If it's not clearly in possession or clearly ability to gain possession, then let's say they don't have possession. So we had another question here. Wait, it's a red card for denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity. That is correct, specifically outside the penalty area. There's a whole other set of criteria for what happens inside the penalty area. We're not going to talk about that today because it gets into a little bit too much nuance. For our purposes, we're going to focus on decisions that are outside the penalty area. Perhaps next month I'll do a detailed presentation on what happens for things inside the penalty area. But if you have a foul that denies an obvious goal scoring opportunity outside the penalty area, means these 4 things are present, then yes, it is a red card for denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity. Any other questions on these considerations, or specifically the difference between stopping a promising attack and denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity? All right, so what I'm going to do then, so we had a question here, can DOGSO also have a yellow card? Only inside the penalty area, and we're not going to talk about that tonight. We don't have enough time to talk about both outside and inside. So the answer is yes, you can have a yellow card for denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity, but only inside the penalty area, specifically only inside the penalty area, which we're not going to be talking about tonight. So I'm going to pause sharing my screen for a moment, and I'm going to pull up the videos that we're going to look at this evening. All right, so I'm going to start by just giving you 6 examples. I'm going to play this clip, and I'm going to talk you through why the decision is what it is. And then the last few clips here are going to be clips where I'll play it for you. I'll put a poll up and we'll see what everybody's answers are for that. So I'm just going to run through these 6 examples here and sort of talk through why some of these are yellow cards, why some of them are no cards at all, and why some of them are going to be red cards. So here comes our first one. This is an example of stopping a promising attack where we would expect to see a yellow card as the result. So if we stop it right here at the moment of the foul, this is where we need to evaluate the considerations that we just talked about. So we'll start with possession. Does the player have possession of the ball? The answer is yes. The next one we want to talk about is the personnel. What kind of numerical advantage does this team have? So right now, if we take away this player, which is something you're going to hear me say a lot tonight when we're looking at potential tactical fouls, if we remove the guilty party from the infraction or from the situation, we've got 3, maybe 4 attackers going against 2 defenders. So definitely a numerical advantage. We also want then to look, what's the next consideration we look at? Proximity to goal. Definitely good proximity to goal, right? They're just outside the penalty area. And then the last consideration that we have that we want to look at is the potential for attack. Does this player have time, space, and options? Definitely has time, has a little bit of space, though not a lot, but definitely has options to play out. So that would suggest we have all 4 considerations present. But at the end of the day, we have 2 defenders here that are between the player and the goal, which limit just a little bit the potential for attack. And so we would want to have a yellow card for this because there are defenders back that keep this from being a very, very obvious goal scoring opportunity. So we had somebody make a comment here about the video being choppy. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment and then I'm going to reshare. I apologize. I'm not sure if I thought I had optimized video, but in case I didn't. Okay, so back to this clip. So the only reason this is not denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity is because there are 2 defenders that are back between the player who's attacking and the goal. If you remove these players from the equation, now this is an obvious goal scoring opportunity. But because these players are still here and can still defend, we would consider this to be a promising attack, not an obvious goal scoring opportunity, and we would expect a yellow card to be shown here for this one. Any questions on that? I'll play it one more time in case it was a little choppy. I apologize for that. Watch just the last replay here as they get into it. So again, the presence of these 2 defenders are why we don't have an obvious goal scoring opportunity and we would have a yellow card. Now, a little hint for when you're out on the field, you know, it's hard at times to be able to pick up tactical foul situations. And so a little trick for you is at this moment, can you already be thinking about, do I have a potential tactical foul situation? Player has possession, proximity to goal is getting better as they go. The big one here is the numerical advantage, right? The personnel. You have 3v2. So a good experienced referee, while they're following this play down the field, is already thinking, if I have a foul here, I have a tactical foul. I have stopping a promising attack. Because there's time, space, options, all those things are present. So if a foul happens, I would have a yellow card here. And they're thinking about that as they're following that play. So that's a little hint for you to, or a little trick for you to be able to capture these in real time. So let's contrast that with this one and talk about why this would not be considered a promising attack. So the player, if we talk about clear ability to gain possession, the touch goes a little far away. Maybe they can get there, maybe not. We're not 100% sure. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he can regain possession of this ball. The next thing we want to talk about is personnel. What kind of numerical advantage do they have? Well, 1, 2, 3 against 1, 2, 3 defenders. Not bad. What's the proximity to goal? This is where we want to talk specifically about Sonny's question earlier about direction. Notice how this ball is going way out towards the touchline. By the time he does track this ball down, all of these players are going to have time to get back, which means the fact that he's going away from goal and not towards it is something we need to think about a little bit when we consider proximity. If this same touch from this spot is going in towards goal, completely changes the situation for us. But because he's going away from goal in this scenario, the proximity to goal is lacking. And then when we talk about time, space, and options, probably time and space, but very, very limited options because the other attackers really aren't up with the play, and there's going to be people that are going to be marking him. So the primary factor for why this is not a yellow card has to do with the proximity to goal consideration, specifically because he's going away from goal. And because he's going away from goal, that's going to give the other defenders time to get back and change the numerical situation. So we had another question here. How can you use proximity fouls in judging headers? I'm not sure that I understand that question, Ian. We're talking about tactical fouls, not fouls involved hitting the ball. So I'm not going to address that question. So this is why we don't have a yellow card for this one, specifically the ball going towards the touchline and away from the goal. Now, this is an example of denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity that we would expect to see a red card for this. Now, the reason we would expect to see a red card is because at the moment of the foul, does he have possession of the ball? Yes, he does. What does the personnel look like? There's one attacker, but there's no defenders. This guy's going 1v1 onto goal. So with no other defenders back to stop him, he's got a 1v1 opportunity onto goal. Time, space, and options, potential for attack, definitely. Proximity to goal, very high. He's just outside the penalty area, and he's going towards goal. So that means all 4 of our boxes are checked, and most noticeably, unlike the first clip that we looked at, there are no more defenders back here aside from the goalkeeper. And so the fact that this attacker is going to go 1v1 to goal suggests that this is an obvious goal-scoring opportunity. Now, if this player, instead of dribbling towards the goal, I'm going to grab my little pen thing here for a second, instead of going this direction onto goal, which is what happens in this clip, if he's going in this direction, suddenly we lose proximity to goal because he's going away from the goal, not towards the goal. So if he's going this direction, we would have a yellow card. But because he is going in this direction, we have a red card. Does that make sense for everybody? Does anybody have any questions on that one? Question here, maybe a bit off topic. Can the defender be cautioned for a reckless challenge instead? That's yes, very much off topic, but also if the player deserves to be sent off for denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity, then we wouldn't want to give a yellow card for a reckless challenge. Oh, sorry, Sonny, I didn't notice. Okay. Thank you for clarifying. Sonny commented that it was for the previous clip, so my apologies there. All right, other questions? So because you take the fouling defender out of consideration, it does not matter if the fouling defender is in front or back of the attacker. That is correct, because in this situation in particular, if this defender doesn't commit this foul, the player's beyond him and he's going on to goal. So a trick that we use when we're trying to decide for tactical fouls is we remove that player from the equation. So if we remove this player from the equation, if player doesn't, another way to consider it is if that player doesn't commit that foul, what happens after that? And that what would happen after that is this player would go on to goal and would have an obvious goal scoring opportunity. Mike, Milton, can you specify or clarify your question? I'm not sure that I understand. Can I specify the penalty assessment? I'm not sure what that means. Can you clarify that for me? Direct free kick, yes. This would be a direct free kick for a foul that happened outside the penalty area, and we would have a red card for denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity. Okay, moving us along to the next one. So I want you to think about the direction and the distance to goal and contrast it with this one. Foul happens there. So if the foul happens right there, clear possession of the ball, definitely. Personnel, that's when we start to talk about what our numbers look like. This defender and this attacker are certainly involved. Proximity to goal, he's a little farther away now, and he's out wide. Now, if this player were in the middle of the field and there were no other defenders around, this is perfectly good proximity to have denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity. But the addition of this defender with the ball being out wide, what we have to ask ourselves is, does this defender have time to get back and defend? And if we think that this player does have the ability to get back and defend, then we would only have stopping a promising attack for this foul, not denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity. And so the fact that this defender, give me just a second here, the fact that this defender here is about the same distance as the ball and this player here means that this guy does very likely have the opportunity to get back here and try to defend this, which makes it less of an obvious goal scoring opportunity and definitely more of a promising attack. So we would want to have a yellow card for this, primarily because he's a little out wide, which means the proximity to goal is a little farther, and there's a defender who does have time to recover and get back there and defend. That's the difference between the obvious goal scoring opportunity and just simply a promising attack, is whether or not a defender can get back there and actually defend for it. So question here, does the angle that he is moving towards the goal line matter? What if he was on the goal line? That's a little bit difficult for this clip, specifically because the ability for this guy to get back and defend is what makes this not a red card. If we take this ball and put it all the way on the goal line, but this guy's still standing here, then can he get back there? No. Okay. So this one, again, thank you, something from the last clip. I apologize. So with this one, this needs to be a yellow card for stopping a promising attack because he definitely has proximity to goal to make a promising attack. There's definitely potential for attack, time, space, and options. He clearly has the ball. And so this would just be a yellow card. A question here, would the relative speed of players be a consideration? Meaning this is a fast attacker and this is a really slow defender. I'm going to say on the day that's probably going to be a hard sell. If there's a defender who's close by, we need to consider that to be at least some potential for getting there and making a challenge before the player has a 1v1 with the goalkeeper. Now, if this attacker is right here and this defender is here and that guy is never going to catch him, that's a different story. But with this specific situation, there's an opportunity for this defender to get back, so we would just have a yellow card. Another example of denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity in a red card. So again, if we watch this one, long ball goes through. And we have a defender who trips an attacker right there and causes them to go to ground. So if we stop this at the moment the foul happens, we have a ball that's up in the air. This is a difficult situation, but we have to ask ourselves, would this player have likely gotten onto the end of this ball and had opportunity to settle it? And because it's moving so slowly, the answer would be yes, he does. Now, if this ball is bouncing all the way into the goalkeeper, that's a different story. Now, suddenly, he doesn't have the ability to possess the ball. But because the ball doesn't roll very far, we can assume that he's going to be able to gain possession of this ball before the goalkeeper or the other defender, were he not fouled. So possession is there. Yes, he's got the ability to gain possession of the ball. What does the personnel look like? If he's not fouled, he's 1v1 onto the goalkeeper. So this is a 1v1 attacking opportunity. Proximity to goal at the moment the foul happens, he's about 35, 40 yards from goal. But again, if he's not fouled, he's in 1v1 to goal, and he's got this defender beat. And then the last thing is potential for attack. Definitely has time, space, and options. And so for that reason, we would expect a red card to be shown, as it was in this game by this referee on the day. So a correct decision from the referee on the day, we would expect to have a red card shown here because this is the last defender bringing this down. Any questions on this one? Doesn't intent need to factor? This looked like an accident. That's actually a very, very good question. For a long time in the laws of the game, we tried to consider people's intent. And for the last couple of years, we've really worked hard on trying to remove intent from our considerations. Because at the end of the day, you really never can know if someone did something on purpose or on accident. So really all we're going to do is judge what actually happens. And we don't factor in intent at all to our considerations. So if this player has committed a foul, and if the foul itself, whether it's on accident or not, denies an obvious goal scoring opportunity, then it needs to be a red card. It's unfortunate, but at the end of the day, that is what it is. We had a comment here. It seems like the term tactical implies intent. I could see why you would think that, Alexander, but flip it on its head. Is there a tactical implication to the foul? Meaning, if the foul occurs, does the team that was fouled lose some sort of tactical advantage? And the answer to that is yes. So if a foul happens, even without intent, if the team who was fouled loses a tactical advantage as a result of it, that is a foul that has tactical implications. That is a tactical foul. And the term tactical definitely used to be, back in the old terms when we were thinking about professional fouls, just as Steve has suggested, a deliberate foul, right? Well, we've removed the idea of deliberate, the idea of professional. We've removed those out of the equation, and now we just judge the considerations. Was there a negative tactical element to it for the team who received the foul? And if it was, then we have misconduct. We had a comment here. Seems like 35 yards out is too far to be obvious. That's an incorrect observation. The fact that this player is in behind the defender, and as you can see here, would have been free and clear and on to goal, means that this is an obvious goal scoring opportunity. All right. Last example. This is another one where we would want to see a yellow card. So again, the reason we would have yellow card here is because at this moment the foul is committed. The player definitely has possession of the ball. The personnel, he's going to be 1v1 with another defender, not with the goalkeeper. There's a goalkeeper plus another defender back. Proximity to goal is good. He's about 30 yards away, and he's definitely got time, space, and option. So this is certainly a promising attack, and it's the presence of this defender that makes the numerical advantage not as great and makes it just a promising attack instead of a red card for denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity. So that's why we would expect to have a yellow card for this one. Any questions on any of those clips or any of the considerations we talked about before we move on and start having you make some decisions on tactical fouls? Any other questions? How much input would the ARs have? Very, very good question. There are times where on counterattacks in particular, a referee may not have a good vantage point on whether or not defenders were back or if they were behind or in front. And those are where the ARs can help a lot. So the ARs can provide additional considerations so that we don't necessarily have to have the referee making that decision all by themselves. So we had a question about the previous clip. In the previous clip, the ball bouncing, if that ball bounces hard and goes all the way to the goalkeeper, is it still a promising attack? So if you remember back to what I talked about possession has to be present for either a promising attack or a denial of an obvious goal scoring opportunity. If that ball bounces all the way through to the goalkeeper and we judge that that attacker probably didn't have the ability to gain possession, then we would not have a yellow card either because you have to have possession. Really, really good question here from Scott. How would you weigh the age and skill against the distance to goal question? That is a really, really excellent question. In fact, to demonstrate, I want to go back to the last clip that we were looking at. And I'll play it. So thinking about age and skill in particular, physicality, speed, things like that. For this foul that happens here, if these guys are 19 years old, do we think a 19-year-old can dribble fast enough to keep going? Probably. If these kids are 12, do we think a 12-year-old is going to have that same ability to do that? Probably not. And so 100% the physical ability, regardless of age, the physical ability of a player to capture the ball here and dribble onto goal without stumbling and falling over or losing the ball or having someone catch up, et cetera, those are all factors that we need to be thinking about. The age is less important than it is the skill set and the physical ability of the players. If Messi was 13 years old and he was on the field with a bunch of other 13-year-olds, he would have gotten this ball and gone and scored the goal 100% of the time, every single time. And so if, 13-year-old Messi gets this ball and the player fouls him, is this a red card? 100% yes, because that player on that day would have the ability to do it. And so the ability that you have to judge the player's skill sets definitely factors into this equation. And we had a comment here on this clip in particular, the ball being in the air makes it hard to judge. That's correct at this specific moment in time. But also please note that as you watch what happens with the ball, you can see that it's really not rolling very far, which means he was going to get on the end of this, and the goalkeeper's not coming off his line. So the combination of those two things means possession was more likely to be gained by that attacker. But very, very good observations. So let's have you guys make some decisions. So I'm going to play a clip. I'll play it through at least once if there's a replay. If not, I'll play it through a couple times. I'll pause it at the moment of truth, and then I will put the poll up and ask you to make a decision. Just 3 simple decisions or 3 simple options: no card, yellow card for SPA, or red card for denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity. That's our clip. And one more time, and then I'll pause it at our moment of truth, and I'll ask you to make a decision. All right, so here comes the first poll. A few more seconds to get your votes in. All right. 94% correctly say that this is a red card. And the reason that this is a red card is because if this player doesn't commit the foul, there are no other defenders back aside from the goalkeeper who are going to contest for this ball, which means this attacker is going to go 1v1 with the goalkeeper, and this foul denies that obvious goal scoring opportunity. Possession is clear, proximity to goal is good, personnel, there's nobody back to defend, and potential for attack, he's got time, space, and options. So every single box on this one is checked. We would have a red card for denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity. Good start for us, everybody. Well done. On to the next one. Here we go. Watch that one again. All right. And then one last time, and I'll pause it at the moment of truth. All right. And here comes the next poll. Few more seconds to get your votes in. All right. This one a little bit less clear for us. So we've got 60% or so on a red card for denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity. And we've got 37% saying that this is a yellow card for stopping a promising attack. So the correct answer on this one is red card. And the reason it's a red card has to do with a combination of the personnel and the proximity to goal. So at this point, if this player is not fouled, the ball is right in front of him, and very likely his next touch will be a shot on goal with nobody but the goalkeeper back. And so if he is not fouled, his next touch is very likely putting the ball into the back of the net. And so because this defender commits that foul, he is not able to do that. The other factor involved here has to do with this defender. Now, if we move this whole situation back another 30 yards, does this defender have an opportunity to play the ball and to catch up? Maybe. We're not sure, but that makes it not obvious. But because we're so close to goal, and because this player's literal next touch is going to be a shot, this guy is not going to have the time to get caught up. And because of that, that makes it a red card for us. So the next question here, and this is a good one from Doug, I thought he made a heavy touch on the ball just before the foul, making possession no longer clear. That's a good thing to be looking at. Very, very good observation. The challenge with this one, the thing that we need to think about is the speed at which the defender, or excuse me, the attacker is running. It's deceiving if we say, oh, look how far away the ball was when the player's tumbling on the ground. Even after having been fouled, flipped up in the air and rolling, he's still about the same distance, if not just slightly closer to the ball than the goalkeeper. Imagine if he had not been fouled and had kept running at a full sprint. He would have taken 2 more steps and he'd have been back on the ball before the goalkeeper ever has a chance to get there. So that's why it's really important for us to be thinking about this before the foul happens. So I spoke a little while ago about that trick that you can use about evaluating if that player gets fouled, what are you going to do before it actually happens? That's going to help you to realize that this guy's going on to goal and gets fouled and would have kept going. If you wait until the foul happens and he's laying on the ground, then you say, oh, well, the goalkeeper might have gotten there. Instead of realizing that the guy's on a dead sprint, he's going to take 2 more steps and he's going to be back on the ball because of how fast he's moving. He's actually moving at the same speed of the ball here and would have gotten to that ball were it not for his motion being disrupted. So we had a comment here. It looks like the defender kicked the ball. If that had been the case, this is where we need to think about physics a little bit. The defender is moving. Give me a second here to draw. The defender is moving this direction. The attacker is moving this direction. If the defender had played the ball here, which way would we have expected the ball to go? If the defender gets the ball is going to go this way because that's the way the defender is moving. Which way does the ball actually go? I got to get out of my draw tool to do that. The ball goes the same direction the attacker was going, not the way the defender was going. So if the defender gets this ball, the ball is going to move down the field in the direction of the blue arrow, not in the direction of the red arrow. So that's those little tricks that we can look at by being able to see the ball and see which way it goes is going to tell us who played it. Question here, if the defender gets the ball, is the foul the same? I would argue probably in this case, if the defender plays the ball, it's probably not even a foul. So definitely a situation where the defender just mistimes the tackle and trips the player instead. So we had a good question here. We have the benefit of replay. At game speed, would it be incorrect to consider the other defender who is 2 steps away may catch up? That's why, again, the answer to this is red card. So if this happens to you in a game where you're being evaluated, we would expect a red card to be shown here. The only way you're going to get this right is if you recognize before the foul happens that this guy is moving way faster than this guy. So if you're reading that, when we talk about reading play, that's the kind of stuff we're talking about. So we need you to be able to read that this guy is moving way faster than this guy, and this guy's not going to have a chance to get caught up. And if you're able to do that, you're able to perceive that this would be a red card for denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity. All right. So moving us along to the next one. Another example or another view. And one last time. All right. I will put the poll up and let's see what we think. A few more seconds to get our answers in. All right. And about 73% correctly say that this is a red card for denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity. Again, when we freeze frame it here, the things we're thinking about, does he have possession? Yes. The next one becomes the personnel. Now we have to ask ourselves, with this proximity to goal, do these two players who are 5 to 6, 7, 8 yards away, are they going to have a chance to catch up to this guy who's at a full sprint, before he gets inside the penalty area and shoots? And the answer to that is most definitely no. This guy's running at full speed. There's no chance either of these two guys get caught up in the 5 to 8 yards he has to travel before he wants to take a shot. They would have to be running twice as fast as him to cover that distance, and they're just simply not doing that. So because they're not going to have a chance to get caught up, and because this guy is going right on to goal when this foul happens, he's close proximity, lots of potential for attack with time, space, and options, no defenders back to defend. This would be an obvious goal-scoring opportunity and a red card. So, Ian, we had a question here. Active play is also considered from the other two defenders. I'm not sure what you mean by that. So another question, presuming that when you say the defender catching up implies getting in front of the defender to make a non-fouling play, not just getting near, 100%, that is what we would expect, is that the defender would need to actually get in front to be able to defend. Very, very good one. So we had a question here, isn't he going diagonally to the goal? You can see here from the beginning, he's going a little bit, but the last touch actually goes in, and you can see the ball rolls into the penalty area. If he has not been fouled, he would have taken a shot from right around here, which is definitely an obvious goal-scoring opportunity. So definitely a foul here and denying an obvious goal-scoring opportunity. We have time for one more clip. Let's see what this one brings for us. Oops, there's a hint there. All right, let's have the poll on this one. You got a hint there, so I hope we don't get this one wrong. All right, a few more seconds to get your answers in. All right, and we definitely have 84% saying we have a red card here, and you would be correct. And for those of you that didn't catch it, I let the video play a little too long, and we have the referee showing a red card. So the thing that we want to think about with this one has to do with the fact that at this point when the foul starts, and even by the time the foul ends, quite honestly, this defender is not going to be able to get back and defend this before this player goes 1v1 on to goal. And so because there's no chance she can get back and defend, we would have a red card for denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity. So we are at 8 o'clock exactly. We had one person request one more video. So we will go ahead and do one more video, and then we will call it a night. Last one, here we go. Watch it again. And one last time. All right. Here comes the last poll of the evening. A few more seconds to get your answers in. All right. And we are doing really, really well tonight. 81% say correctly that this is a yellow card. Now, what makes this different from the last couple of clips that we've looked at specifically has to do, specifically has to do with proximity to the goal. Now, this is definitely the last defender, but They are 55 yards from goal. And so as we were talking about a couple of minutes ago, with that distance to travel and the fact that this player is not at a full sprint when he starts this play, is this guy going to have a chance to get back? And the answer is maybe. We're not 100% sure. But this guy is already sprinting, so it's not 100% obvious that from this distance from goal that this player would not have had the opportunity to catch up and potentially defend. So with this one, definitely personnel. It's going to be 1v1. Definitely time, space, and options, clear possession. But the one thing that we're not certain about is how far from goal they are and what implications that has for this defender to be able to get back. So because this guy has the chance to get back, that makes it a little bit less obvious. And so we would want to have a yellow card here for stopping a promising attack, not a red card for denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity. Any questions on that one? All right, then as always, I thank you for joining this evening. I wish you good continued health and stay safe out there with all the fires and everything. I hope everybody's doing okay. Thank you again for joining and have a good night.